exactly do we conceptualize or what exactly do we understand by solidarity economies and local area economies? And first, so one of the first things that we want to do in our initiative is to understand what are the ways in which solidarity economies and local area economies conceptually make sense. And then the second level would be then to see around the different initiatives that the Vikalp Sangam website has and around the different initiatives that many of us are associated with, which would be the ones that would come into this framework of solidarity economy and local area economies. And some of the examples that we thought of were local co-ops, local consumer groups, small producers, different food networks. And so the idea would be to understand what are the ways in which there could be a exchange and planning for these different kinds of solidarity economy, and to see in which level the values or the principles or spiritual principles come into play when we look at these different economic activities. Then a couple of other key areas which we thought that we need to focus on were first decentralized energy initiatives, or how do we conceptualize economic initiatives with spiritual principles and with the different kinds of energy needs that they have. So what are the ways in which those interactions would look like? And then another important point was that how do we build connections or alliances? So what are the ways in which a decentralized IT system would come into play when we're talking about these across regions and across different scales? And the concrete thing that we thought of was that we would like to do something called regional Vikalp Yatras, in which our group would go to or talk with certain different initiatives which comes into this framework and see their engagement with spirituality and trying to find solidarities and building alliances between these different networks. So this was more or less what we were talking about. What we were thinking when we were talking about the solidarity economies yesterday in the evening, to how to connect it with the spiritual aspects. So our idea was to go back to in the first day when we saw the petals or the flower of transformation, and one of the aspects was also spiritual. So the idea was then thinking, for example, if you're looking at one of the examples which was given was the weavers from Kutch, no? So that could be one form of solidarity economy, and then we see how or whether spirituality was one of the guiding principles. What were the forms of spirituality which came into being when these kind of collectives were made? So that was our intention of trying to use spirituality as a guiding principle to make these connections. And then, like the first point was of course regional, no? But then we were also talking about how, for example, in Barcelona there is this rich social and solidarity economy framework. So then this idea of when we're talking about decentralized IT systems, when we would have then maybe open source coding and find ways in which we can then make these big connections. So we had all these initial thoughts of how to make these connections, but then I think we need to put our minds together and see how it works.